I've handled more than my share of arrogant people in this courtroom, but nothing prepared me for the morning Cassandra Holloway swept through those doors wearing an outfit that probably cost more than most families spend on rent in a year. She didn't just carry herself with confidence. She wore smugness like a second skin, and my jaw tightened before she'd even taken her seat. When she finally spoke, the contempt dripping from every word told me this case was going to leave a mark. What unfolded over the next 40 minutes would reshape her entire world and remind every person in that room that inside my courtroom, your net worth means absolutely nothing. The paperwork in front of me was straightforward. Cassandra Holloway, 23 years old, charged with reckless driving, fleeing the scene of a collision and obstruction of justice. She rear-ended a family SUV at a traffic light, caused substantial damage, and when the other driver stepped out to exchange information, Cassandra had laughed, muttered something about the car being an embarrassment, and pulled away without a second glance. Every second of it was captured on city traffic cameras, open and shut. But here's what made things interesting. Cassandra's father was Derek Holloway, founder of Holloway Capital Group, with a personal fortune estimated north of $2 billion. The family had endowed hospital wings, funded scholarship programs, and their name appeared on half the institutions in the city. Cassandra had clearly grown up believing that currency could substitute for character, including in here. She arrived 22 minutes late, not running behind late, deliberately, brazenly late. Her attorney, a polished man from a downtown firm, rushed in ahead of her with apologies tumbling out of his mouth. Cassandra strolled in behind him as though she were stepping into a boutique, not a courtroom. Her heels struck the tile with a deliberate rhythm that announced her before she'd said a word. Designer sunglasses still on her face, a handbag that cost more than most people's car payments. And that outfit, ivory silk, perfectly tailored. This wasn't court attire. This was a statement. I waited until she reached her table before speaking. Miss Holloway, good of you to join us. I trust there was a good reason for your tardiness. She slowly removed her sunglasses, folding them with theatrical care. Traffic. You know how it is. No, Your Honor, no apology. Just a casual dismissal like I'd asked about the weather. Her attorney jumped in. Your Honor, we sincerely apologize for the delay. It won't happen again. I nodded at him, then fixed my eyes back on Cassandra. Miss Holloway, this is a court of law, not a social gathering. When you're scheduled before me at 9 a.m., I expect you here at 9 o'clock a.m. Are we clear? She lifted one shoulder in a shrug. An actual shrug. Sure. The gallery was packed. Courthouse regulars, a few reporters who'd caught the hallway name. And sitting quietly in the third row, Patricia Reyes, the woman whose SUV Cassandra had destroyed. Patricia was a pediatric nurse who'd come straight from an overnight shift, still in her scrubs. She'd been driving her 2 kids to school that morning. She sat there watching this young woman treat the legal system like an inconvenience on an otherwise busy schedule. I read the file and let the silence stretch. People who believe they control every room tend to unravel under silence. When I looked up, Cassandra was tapping at her phone beneath the table. Miss Holloway put the phone away. She glanced up, startled. I'm just checking something. Nothing here outranks these proceedings. Phone away now. She exhaled dramatically and dropped it into her bag. Her attorney cleared his throat. Your Honor, if we could move things along, my client has a prior commitment this afternoon. A prior commitment, as if this were a calendar item wedged between lunch and a tennis lesson. I lean forward. Counselor, your client is facing charges of reckless driving, hit and run, and obstruction of justice. These aren't parking tickets, so unless that commitment involves emergency surgery, she stays until we're finished. However long that takes. Cassandra leaned over and whispered to her attorney. He shook his head quickly. She ignored him. Your Honor, with all due respect, this whole situation is being blown out of proportion. It was a fender bender. My insurance will cover it. A fender bender. Patricia's SUV had been totaled. Her children had been terrified. She lost 3 days of wages sorting through the aftermath. But to Cassandra, it was just a fender bender. Miss Holloway, I said, my voice dropping into the register that makes attorneys nervous. You struck another vehicle, caused significant damage, and instead of stopping as the law requires, you drove away. And you're calling this blown out of proportion? Accidents happen. I don't understand why everyone's acting like I committed some major crime. Her attorney looked like a man praying for the floor to swallow him whole. He'd clearly coached her on courtroom behavior, on addressing a judge, on the importance of showing remorse. She discarded every word of it. I pulled up the traffic camera footage on the courtroom display. Let's watch what happened, shall we? The video played crystal clear. Cassandra's car at a red light, then lurching forward into the back of Patricia's SUV. Patricia climbing out, visibly shaken, moving to check on her children in the back seat. Then Cassandra stepping out, surveying the damage, and saying something audible through the footage. Oh, please. That thing was already falling apart. Then she got back in her car, drove around the SUV, and ran the red light without hesitation. The courtroom went completely silent. I studied Cassandra's face. Nothing. No shame, no recognition, nothing. Miss Holloway, do you recall what you said to Ms. Reyes that day? Not really. I was flustered. The footage shows you called her vehicle already falling apart. Something close to a smirk crossed Cassandra's face. I mean, it wasn't exactly new. The gallery reacted audibly. Even her attorney dropped his head into his hands. That's when I knew exactly how this was going to end. I rose from the bench. When I do that, everyone in the courtroom understands something significant is coming. Miss Holloway, you watch footage of yourself leaving an accident scene, and your response is to mock the victim's vehicle. Do I have that right? For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. I didn't mean it that way. How did you mean it? I just meant my car is newer, so obviously the damage to hers would cost less to fix. The logic was so completely detached from reality that I had to pause. This wasn't just privilege. This was something deeper. A person who had never once been made to reckon with the effect she had on other people. Your car is newer, I repeated slowly. Therefore, the harm you caused matters less. Relatively speaking, yeah, her attorney stood. Your Honor, may I have a moment with my client? Sit down, counselor. Your client is speaking for herself just fine. I turned back to Cassandra. Walk me through your thinking that day. She sighed like I'd asked her to solve a complex equation. I was running late for a meeting. I misjudged my braking. It was an accident. That's literally what the word means. And when you saw you'd struck a vehicle carrying children, what did you observe? I looked. They seemed fine. Kids cry over everything. From the gallery, Patricia made a small sound. I glanced over. She was pressing a hand to her mouth, eyes glistening. Miss Holloway, those children were not fine. They had nightmares for weeks. The younger one became too frightened to get into a car. That's the mother catastrophizing. If she'd stayed calm, the kids would have been fine. The courtroom erupted. Voices from the gallery. The bailiff called for order. Even Cassandra's attorney looked genuinely stunned by what she just said. I waited for silence, then spoke with deliberate calm. You are blaming a mother for her children's trauma. Trauma caused when you hit their vehicle and abandoned them. Kids mirror adult reactions. It's basic psychology. For decades on this bench, I've sentenced hardened criminals who showed more self-awareness than this young woman in front of me. Cassandra Holloway wasn't someone who had made a terrible mistake and knew it. She was something I encounter more often now. Someone so thoroughly shielded from consequence that accountability had become a foreign language. Let's discuss what followed the accident. I said, according to the police report, you drove directly to your athletic club. You had lunch. You didn't contact your insurance company until 4 days later when Ms. Reyes tracked you down through your license plate. Is that accurate? I needed time to decompress. While Ms. Reyes needed time to figure out how to get to work without a car, how to cover a rental she couldn't afford, how to keep her children's lives from falling apart. Cassandra's chin lifted. That's what insurance is for. Insurance. You didn't report for 4 days. I had things on my schedule. My life doesn't stop because of an accident. I looked down at the file. Cassandra's driving record told its own story. 2 speeding infractions. A citation for running a stop sign. A prior reckless driving charge reduced through her attorney's negotiations. Not isolated mistakes. A pattern. Miss Holloway, this is not your first traffic offense. Everybody speeds sometimes. Not everybody flees an accident with children involved. I didn't flee. I left. The semantic gymnastics were exhausting. Her attorney's face had been cycling through shades of red for the past several minutes. You left an accident scene without providing required information. That's called a hit and run. That's a crime. Cassandra's expression hardened. My father's attorney said this would get dismissed. And there it was. The bedrock of all of it. Someone had told this young woman she was untouchable. Your father's attorney isn't sitting on this bench. I am. But he said, given our family standing in the community, the contributions we've made. I held up one hand. Stop. Silence fell over the room. I don't care about your family's contributions. I don't care about buildings bearing your last name. None of that is relevant in this courtroom. Cassandra looked at her attorney in desperation. He stared at the table. He already knew where this was heading. I reached for the folder my clerk had prepared. Before I deliver my ruling, Miss Holloway, I'm going to read you something. Miss Reyes submitted a victim impact statement. You're going to hear every word. Cassandra shifted in her chair. Her attorney placed a hand on her forearm. She pulled away from it. I opened the folder. My name is Patricia Reyes. I'm a single mother raising 2 children, ages 6 and 9. On the morning of February 8th, my life changed because someone decided their schedule mattered more than my safety. I was stalked at a red light when Cassandra Holloway's vehicle hit mine from behind. The impact threw me forward. My chin struck the steering wheel. My daughter Sophia was screaming in the back seat. My son Daniel was crying, asking me over and over whether we were going to die. I got out of my car, disoriented, bleeding. I walked toward Miss Holloway's vehicle. She looked directly at me through her window. She saw my children, and then she drove away for 4 days. I didn't know who had hit us. My car was totaled. I couldn't get to work. I lost wages. I couldn't recover. My children missed school. But the money isn't the hardest part to carry. Sophia wakes up screaming from nightmares. Daniel asks me every single morning before we leave whether we're going to have another accident. My 6-year-old has lost her sense of safety in the world because a stranger looked at her and chose to drive away. I'm a nurse. I spend my shifts caring for people at their most vulnerable. The woman who hit my children showed me nothing. Not accountability, not even a backwards glance. I have spent my life showing up for people in crisis. That morning, no one showed up for us. I sat down the folder and looked directly at Cassandra. That is who you were that day, Miss Holloway. Someone who looked at 2 terrified children and chose her own convenience. Cassandra's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I didn't know they were that scared. You didn't stay long enough to find out. Her attorney rose. Your Honor, if I may, your client has offered nothing but excuses since she walked in. Now she's going to hear what accountability sounds like. I straightened the papers in front of me. Cassandra Holloway, on the charges of leaving the scene of a collision resulting in property damage and personal injury, I find you guilty. Here is your sentence. You will serve 45 days in county jail. Not home confinement, not work release. Actual jail. Cassandra gasped. You can't. I can. And I am. Your driver's license is suspended for 1 year. At the end of that period, you will retake both the written and driving examinations before reinstatement. Her face had gone pale. You will complete 100 hours of community service at the same hospital where Ms. Reyes works. You will see what it means to show up for people rather than leave them behind. I have commitments, events, your schedule just changed. You will also pay full restitution to Miss Reyes covering her vehicle, her medical expenses, her lost wages, and her children's ongoing therapy. Her attorney objected. Your Honor, this is excessive. My client has no prior criminal record. Your client has a documented history of reckless behavior and has shown zero remorse during these entire proceedings. This sentence is designed to break a pattern before it breaks someone else. I looked at Cassandra one final time. You came in here today believing your name protected you. Let me tell you what actually matters in this courtroom. A 6-year-old girl who wakes up screaming. A 9-year-old boy who's afraid of traffic lights. A mother who dedicates her life to healing others and couldn't get 5 minutes of basic decency from you. The tears were flowing freely now. You drove away because no one had ever truly told you no. Because your entire life, money and status have insulated you from facing what you've done. Today, Miss Holloway, that changes. I picked up my gavel. When you're sitting in that cell, think about Sophia and Daniel, their nightmares, their fear. Think about what you could have prevented by simply staying. Cassandra's composure shattered completely. She turned toward the gallery, eyes landing on her father. Dad, please do something. Derek Holloway rose slowly. The room held its breath. Then he spoke, and his voice carried the full weight of a man finally seeing clearly. Cassandra. A long pause. You did this to yourself. He sat back down. The Baiths moved toward her. Her designer heels clicked against the courthouse floor as they led her out, each step carrying her further from the world that had always bent around her. I turned to Patricia Reyes, who had sat through all of it with her hands folded quietly in her lap. Miss Reyes, is there anything you'd like to say? She stood, and the quiet strength in the way she carried herself was something the whole room felt. Your Honor, I didn't come here wanting someone to suffer, but my children needed to see something today. Her voice was steady and clear. My son asked me recently whether rich people have to follow the same rules as everyone else. He's 9 years old, and he genuinely wasn't sure of the answer. She glanced toward the door where Cassandra had disappeared. Now I can tell him yes, that there are still places where that's true. Thank you. The gallery broke into applause. I let it run for a moment. Sometimes people need to witness fairness in action, need to feel what it looks like when it actually holds. When the room quieted, I addressed everyone present. Let me be clear. This case was not about punishing wealth. It was about holding someone accountable regardless of wealth. There is a difference. What matters in this courtroom is whether you take responsibility for your actions, whether you treat other human beings as though they matter, because they do. Derek Holloway stood. Your Honor, may I approach? I nodded. He came forward, and up close the toll of the morning was written across his face. Your Honor, I want to apologize, not for my daughter's actions. Those are hers to own, but for raising someone who believed she could behave this way. His voice cracked slightly. We gave Cassandra everything. We thought that was helping her. Instead, we created someone who believed the rules didn't apply. That's on us. He held out a folded check. I'd like to establish a fund for Ms. Reyes's children, their education, their therapy, whatever they need, not to reduce my daughter's sentence, just because it's the right thing to do. And I should have raised her to know that already. Patricia stepped forward gently. Mr. Holloway, you don't have to. I know, he said quietly. That's exactly why I want to. I watched this exchange and thought about what it costs a parent to stop protecting a child from consequences and what it costs everyone when they don't. Mr. Per Holloway, I said, the most important thing you can do for your daughter now is let her serve this sentence. No lawyers pulling strings, no arrangements to shorten her time. She needs this. He met my eyes. I know, and I will. He turned to Patricia. I am truly sorry for what my daughter did to your family. You deserve far better. Patricia held his gaze, eyes glistening. Thank you. That means more than you know. The months that followed filtered back to me through various channels. Cassandra served her full 45 days. The first week was difficult. She pushed against every boundary, expected exceptions that never materialized. But something shifted around day 10. Quietly, the armor began coming off. Her community service placed her in the same building as Patricia Reyes. Week after week, at first, Cassandra kept her distance. But Patricia, with a grace I still marvel at, didn't avoid her. She talked to her, not about the accident or the courtroom, just about patience, about the work, about why she kept showing up when the shifts were long and the weight was heavy. Cassandra started listening. Then she started asking questions. By the end of her 1880 hours, she asked Patricia if she could keep coming. Not because it was required, because she wanted to. She wrote a letter to Sophia and Daniel. 2 handwritten pages, no qualifications, no softening, just full responsibility. Patricia read it first, then shared it with her children when they were ready. Derek Holloway's fund was established. Both children's educations are secured. Their therapy continues. Patricia told people that Sophia slept through the night for the first time in months after hearing that letter read aloud. 6 months after sentencing, Cassandra appeared in my courtroom doorway. She asked if I had a few minutes. She stood in the same spot where she'd once stood with her sunglasses and her smirk, and she looked genuinely different. Not polished over, actually different. Your Honor, I hated you that day. I thought you were making an example of me. A pause. You were the first person in my life who looked at what I was becoming and refused to look away. I didn't understand that then. I do now. I didn't change you, Miss Holloway, I said. You changed yourself. The moment you stopped running from what you did and turned to face it, that was yours. She nodded. Then she told me she'd enrolled in the prerequisites for nursing school, that she wanted to work in emergency medicine, that she wanted to be someone who showed up. That is what justice, when it functions as it should, is capable of producing, not destruction, transformation. Patricia Ray has a car again. Her children are healing. And somewhere in this city, a young woman who once walked into my courtroom believing wealth exempted her from consequences is learning what it means to earn trust one shift at a time. And Sophia Reyes, 6 years old, who used to be too frightened to buckle her seatbelt, told her mother recently that she wants to be a doctor when she grows up. That is why I sit on this bench, not to level people, to reach them. The gavel comes down, but the real work begins.